My wife cheated with her boss on our wedding night, then stole $250, $0 of our inheritance, and is now claiming half our house in a bitter legal fight. I never saw any of this coming. Hello everyone. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Now let's begin the video. Using a throwaway for obvious reasons with certain specifics modified to preserve anonymity. I never thought I'd be the guy writing something like this, but here I am. The kind of story that sounds like a bad soap opera, except it's real life and it's my life. The craziest part, it all started on what was supposed to be the happiest night of my life, our wedding night. Yeah, that's right. I married the woman I thought I knew better than anyone. We'd been together for 5 years, building a life, planning our future, and I genuinely believed she was my forever. But within hours of saying, "I do," I found out she was already cheating on me. She was with her boss, David, and they'd been screwing around behind my back for months, maybe longer. And that's just the beginning. It all started when I noticed her acting weird. She's a classic drama queen, loud, bitchy, always throwing fits over the smallest things. But this time, it wasn't her usual over-the-top attitude. No, she was tense, jittery, avoiding my gaze. I caught her scrolling through her phone more than usual, and she'd quickly hide it whenever I glanced her way. She'd make excuses, say she was texting her sister or looking up wedding stuff, but I knew something was off. Then I started noticing money missing from our accounts. At first, I thought maybe she was just spending a lot because of the wedding, but when I checked the bank statements, I saw a pattern. Large withdrawals, 50, 0 here, $100, $0 there, disappearing without explanation. I didn't even realize how much until I sat down and added everything up. One night, I decided to do a little digging. I knew was sneaky. She's always been manipulative, good at lying her way out of things. So I installed a hidden app on her phone just to see if I could catch her in the act. I wasn't prepared for what I found. She'd been messaging David, her boss, the entire time, talking about their secret meetings, their plans to run away together, and how she hated the idea of me ever finding out. The messages were explicit: sex, plans to meet in hotel rooms, even talk of how she'd steal our inheritance to run away. I couldn't believe my eyes. My wife, the woman I loved, was sleeping with her boss and planning to betray me from the very night we got married. That's when I knew I had to confront her. I waited until she came home from work the next day, heart pounding, hands trembling. I told her I knew everything, that I'd seen her messages, that I knew about her affair and her plans to steal our money. Her face twisted into this bitchy sneer, like she was annoyed I was bothering her. She everything at first called me paranoid, said I was imagining things, that David was just a friend. But I showed her the messages, the bank statements, everything I'd uncovered. Her reaction. She laughed, said I was overreacting, that I was just insecure and jealous. She claimed she loved me, that she'd never cheat. Yeah, right, it was all bullshit. The thing is, I could see the truth in her eyes. She knew she'd been caught and she didn't care. She's always been good at lying, but this was next level. The emotional impact hit me like a freight train. I felt numb, then furious, then deeply hurt. How could she do this? On our wedding night, no less. I'd always thought she was my partner, the one person I could trust with everything. But it turned out she'd been lying from day one. The betrayal wasn't just about the sex. It was the lying, the manipulation, the theft of our future. I found out she'd stolen $250, $0 from our inheritance, money we'd saved up, worked hard for, planned to use for a house, a family. She'd taken it all, and for what? A fling with her boss, a reckless, selfish decision that shattered everything I believed in. I felt betrayed, angry, humiliated. I didn't know how to process it all at first. I kept replaying the moments, trying to understand how I'd missed all the signs, how I'd been so blind. But here's the thing. I'm not the kind of guy who just rolls over and accepts betrayal. I knew I had to do something, and fast. I started planning my revenge, not just emotionally but practically. I wanted her to feel what I felt: devastation, loss, the sense that her actions had consequences. I wasn't going to let her walk away with our money, our house, our life, without paying a price. I knew she was planning to claim half our house in a bitter legal fight. She's already hired a lawyer, and she's claiming I'm controlling and abusive, trying to turn everyone against me. But I had proof of her affair, her theft, her lies. I was ready to fight, and I was determined to make her regret everything she'd done. So that's where I am now. Still trying to figure out the next move, still angry and hurt, but also with a plan forming. I know this isn't over, and I know she's not going to go quietly. But I also know I'm not the same man I was a week ago. My world has been turned upside down, and I have to rebuild it from the ground up. If anyone's been through something similar, I could really use some advice. How do you pick up the pieces after someone you trusted so completely screws you over in the worst way possible? After I confronted that day, everything changed in an instant. The house, which just yesterday was filled with our plans and laughter, suddenly felt like a prison. She sat there, still acting all innocent, like I was the crazy one for accusing her of such monstrous things. Her bitchy smirk made my stomach turn. She kept insisting she was innocent, that I was just paranoid, that David was just her boss, nothing more. But I had the proof, and I knew her lies weren't going to hold up for long. Still, her denial was infuriating. She threw around accusations of her own, calling me controlling, jealous, insecure. That made my blood boil even more. The audacity of her to turn things around on me, like I was the problem when she was out there screwing her boss and stealing our money. I didn't even bother arguing much after a while. I was too stunned, too furious. Instead, I started thinking about what to do next. I realized I couldn't just let her walk away with everything. Our house, our savings, our future. I had to act fast. I contacted a lawyer, gave him everything I had, proof of her affair, the bank statements showing the stolen inheritance, the messages. The legal fight was about to get ugly. She was already claiming she deserved half the house because we were married, but I knew I had a chance to fight her on that. I also made sure to gather evidence that she'd been planning her escape for months, her secret meetings with David, her attempts to drain our accounts, her lies. During this period, I also started to feel a strange mix of emotions. The shock was still there, but now I was mostly angry. Angry at her for betraying me on our wedding night, angry at her for stealing from us, angry at myself for not seeing it sooner. I kept replaying everything. How she'd always been bitchy and manipulative, how she'd lie her way out of everything, how she'd tear down anyone who got in her way. It was a brutal realization that I'd been living with a person I barely recognized, someone who could lie so convincingly. That hurt worse than anything. But I also felt a strange sense of clarity. I knew I had to take control of this mess. I started planning my revenge carefully. I wanted her to feel the pain of betrayal, what I was feeling every day. I knew she'd try to spin things her way, blame me for everything, say I was abusive or controlling. That's what she always did, twist the truth, make herself the victim. But I had the evidence, and I was going to use it. I set up a plan. I'd fight her in court, sure, but I also wanted her to understand what she'd lost. I hired a private investigator to keep tabs on her movements just in case she tried to run away with more of our money or do something even more reckless. I also started documenting everything, her calls, her meetings, her attempts to hide assets. If she thought she could steal from us and get away with it, she was wrong. Meanwhile, her attitude was getting more bitchy by the day. She'd throw tantrums, call me names, tell everyone I was abusive and controlling, trying to turn people against me. She'd lie about where she was, who she was with, and what she was doing. I knew her game. She's always been good at lying. But this time I had the proof. She was furious that I was fighting back, that I wasn't just going to roll over and let her take everything. And honestly, part of me was glad that she was finally showing her true colors. It confirmed everything I suspected. She's selfish, manipulative, and willing to ruin our lives for her own selfish needs. The money situation was the most infuriating. She'd taken $250, $0 of our inheritance, money we'd saved for a house, a future, a family, gone just like that. I couldn't wrap my head around how someone could be so reckless, so greedy. And she's already trying to claim half the house, even though she's the one who betrayed me, who stole from us. The legal fight is about to get intense. I've hired a lawyer who's confident we have a solid case. I want her to pay for what she's done, not just in court but emotionally too. I want her to realize she can't get away with this. She can lie, cheat, steal, but I'm not going down without a fight. Looking back now, I realize how much trust I lost that night. The trust I had in what I thought was a solid marriage, shattered completely. It hurts to admit that I was so blind, so naive. But I also learned a lot about myself. I learned that I'm stronger than I thought, strong enough to stand up to a liar like her, strong enough to fight for what's right, even if it means destroying the illusion of our perfect life. I don't regret confronting her, even if it hurt like hell. Sometimes you have to face the truth head on, no matter how ugly it is. Because if you don't, the betrayal will eat you alive from the inside out. Now I'm just waiting for the court date, planning my next moves, and trying to pick up the pieces of what's left of my life. It's not easy, and honestly, I still feel a lot of anger and sadness every day. But I know I'll come out of this stronger. And as for, I hope she gets what she deserves, because no amount of lies or fake tears can undo what she's done. After everything I uncovered and the initial shock wore off, I started feeling the real weight of what I was dealing with. The betrayal wasn't just about the affair or the theft. It was about the complete erosion of trust I'd had in the person I thought was mine. This bitchy, manipulative side came out even more as she realized I wasn't backing down. She threw fits, called me controlling, said I was paranoid, and accused me of trying to ruin her life. But her words felt hollow, like the desperate attempts of someone who knew she'd lost her grip on everything she wanted. I saw right through her, and I knew her game was to make me doubt myself, to turn everyone against me. With the legal paperwork in motion, I threw myself into gathering every piece of evidence I could find. I hired a private investigator, just in case she tried to pull some stunt, like disappearing with more of our money or trying to hide assets. I wanted to catch her in a lie if she ever tried to deny her actions again. Meanwhile, I kept digging through bank statements, emails, and her phone. It was disgusting how much she'd lied, about her whereabouts, her intentions, everything. She'd been sneaking around with David, planning their escape, probably even discussing how she'd spin the story to make herself look like the victim. The money theft was the most infuriating part. I kept thinking about how she'd taken $250, $0 of our inheritance, money we'd worked hard for, saving for a house, for our future. I couldn't believe she was capable of such greed. I started to realize that her manipulative personality wasn't just lying about small things. She was willing to destroy everything for her own selfish needs. That realization made my anger deepen. I saw her for what she truly was, a selfish, bitchy woman who'd rather betray her vows than face her own failures. Her attitude got even more aggressive as the legal process started heating up. She hired her own lawyer, of course, and she began claiming that I'd been abusive, controlling, and that she deserved half our house. That was her way of trying to turn the tables, to paint herself as the victim. But I had months of evidence showing her lies and her betrayal. I knew I had a solid case. Still, every day I felt like I was walking a tightrope, balancing between rage and heartbreak. It was hard not to let the anger consume me, especially when she'd throw tantrums or try to manipulate people around her. One night, I found myself sitting alone in the dark, staring at the legal documents, feeling completely drained. I thought about everything I'd lost: trust, money, my sense of stability. The house we'd planned to buy, the future I'd envisioned with her, all of it was slipping away. And she was out there, probably lying to everyone, trying to turn her lies into truth. I knew she'd do anything to save herself, even if it meant destroying me in the process. That's when I decided I had to be smarter, more strategic. I couldn't let her manipulate her way out of this. I had to fight with everything I had. And then there was the money, the stolen inheritance, the fact that she drained our savings to fund her affair and her escape plan. That was the part that hurt the most, knowing she was willing to betray everything we built together for her own selfish needs. I kept thinking about the house, the stability, the life we'd planned. She was claiming half of everything, even though she was the one who'd betrayed me first. I was ready to fight her in court, to prove that her lies and theft disqualified her from any claim to our home. It was a battle I was prepared to win, no matter how bitter it got. Meanwhile, attitude was getting worse. She'd lash out, call me controlling or abusive, trying to paint me as the bad guy. She'd scream at me, demand I drop the case, threaten to ruin me publicly. But I knew her tactics. I'd seen her do this before, twisting facts, lying through her teeth, trying to manipulate everyone around her. I just kept my head down and focused on the facts, knowing that once the truth came out fully, she wouldn't have anywhere left to hide. Her bitchy side was on full display now, and honestly, I was glad. It confirmed everything I suspected about her. She's a user, a liar, a manipulator. And I was done playing her game. The most frustrating part, the money. Our inheritance, which we'd worked so hard to save, was gone. She stolen it all, 250, without a second thought. I kept replaying that number, trying to understand how someone could be so reckless, so greedy. And now she's claiming half the house, even though she's the one who betrayed me. That's when I realized she was willing to do anything to get what she wanted, no matter how much damage she caused. I wasn't going to let her get away with it. I was preparing for the courtroom battles ahead, knowing I had the evidence to back me up. But deep down, I knew this was about much more than just money or property. It was about trust, betrayal, and the terrible realization that I'd married someone who was capable of such cruelty. I've learned a lot from all of this, about myself, about people, about how dangerous it can be to trust blindly. True nature has shown me that some people will destroy everything for their own selfish reasons, and you have to be ready to fight for what's right. I don't know what the future holds now, but I do know one thing. I'm not going to let her walk all over me. I'm going to stand my ground, fight for what's mine, and make sure she pays for what she's done. Because at the end of the day, you have to take control of your life, even when everything feels like it's falling apart. The more I delved into the mess created, the clearer it became how deeply she'd gone down this path of manipulation and greed. I started to realize that her bitchy, entitled attitude was just a front, her way of hiding how desperate she was to hold onto her lies and her stolen money. Every time she threw a tantrum, called me controlling or abusive, I saw her desperation shining through. She knew she was cornered, and her only defense was to attack me, to try and make me look like the villain. But I wasn't falling for it anymore. I kept gathering evidence, and I made sure I documented everything. Her secret meetings with David, her calls to him late at night, her attempts to hide bank statements and transfer money. I hired a private investigator, and he confirmed what I already suspected, that she was planning to disappear, to run away with the money, and to fight me for the house. She'd been talking about how she'd never get caught, how she'd find a way to keep everything, even if it meant lying in court or breaking the law. That made me furious. She was willing to destroy our lives for a fling and a quick cash grab. Meanwhile, her attitude kept getting more bitchy. She'd lash out at me, call me a control freak, accuse me of being obsessed with money, even though she was the one stealing from us. She'd scream at me about how I was ruining her life, how she was just trying to be free, how I was the bad guy for fighting back. It was all projection. She was the one who'd betrayed everything, and now she was trying to turn the story around. I saw her for what she was, an angry, manipulative woman who'd do anything to keep her lies hidden and her greed satisfied. The money theft was what hurt the most. $250, $0 of our inheritance, the savings we'd worked so hard for, the money we'd planned to use for our future house, our family. She'd taken it all, and every time I thought about it, I got angrier. How could she be so reckless, so selfish? I kept replaying the moments when I'd trusted her, when I'd believed in her. Now I saw her for what she truly was, a liar, a user, a thief, and her claim to half the house. That was just her latest manipulation. She was trying to spin the story, to make everyone believe she was the victim, even though she was the one who betrayed me first. Her lawyer was already working on her side, pushing hard to claim her rights to the house. She was claiming that since we were married, she deserved her share even though she'd been unfaithful and stolen from us. I knew I had to counter that with solid evidence. I wanted the court to see her for what she really was, someone capable of betrayal, theft, and lies. I'd already hired a good lawyer, and we prepared our case carefully. I made sure to keep detailed records of everything, her secret meetings, her attempts to transfer money, her lies. I was determined to make her pay, not just financially but emotionally too. Emotionally, I was drained. I'd gone from being a happy groom to a man betrayed beyond recognition. The shock was still there, but now, underneath it all, was this simmering fury. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and furious all at once. How could someone who promised to love me forever do something so cruel? And the worst part, I knew she'd never regret what she'd done. She'd just lie her way out, blame me, and keep spinning her web of lies. But I wasn't going to let her get away with it. Every day I woke up feeling the weight of her betrayal. The house we'd dreamed of, the money we'd saved, the future we'd planned, gone, stolen by someone I thought loved me. That realization made me sick. I couldn't understand how someone could be so selfish, so manipulative. I'd always been cautious about trusting people, but I never thought my own wife would turn out to be this kind of person. It's a hard lesson, but one I had to learn the hard way. I kept telling myself that I'd get through this, that I'd fight for what's mine and that justice would prevail. The legal process is slow, but I knew I had the evidence to prove her guilt. I also knew that this isn't just about property or money. This is about trust, about the kind of person really is. I don't know if she'll ever face the consequences of her actions, but I do know I won't let her win. I won't let her walk away with everything she stole from us. I've come too far and I've learned too much about her to back down now. One thing's for sure, I've become more cautious, more guarded. I don't trust easily anymore, especially not someone who can lie so convincingly. But I've also learned that I'm stronger than I thought, strong enough to stand up to betrayal, to fight for my rights, and to rebuild what's broken. It's not easy, and I still wake up some mornings feeling hollow inside, but I refuse to let her define me. I'll fight this battle, not just for the house or the money, but for my dignity and my peace of mind. Because at the end of the day, I know I deserve better than a wife who would cheat, steal, and lie just to satisfy her own greed. The court date was set, and suddenly everything felt more real than ever. I'd spent weeks compiling evidence, talking to lawyers, and planning my next moves. Of course, was doing the same, throwing tantrums, claiming I was ruining her life, insisting she was the victim. Her lawyer tried to spin her as a wronged woman, but I had everything on my side. The texts, the bank statements, the secret recordings I'd made of her phone conversations. I knew I had a solid case, but the anxiety of the upcoming hearing was almost unbearable. I kept waking up at night, replaying every detail, wondering if I had missed something, if she'd somehow find a way to lie her way out of it. In the meantime, his attitude grew even more bitchy. She'd lash out at me over the smallest thing, call me controlling, accuse me of being paranoid. She'd try to manipulate our friends and family, painting herself as the innocent victim, the wronged wife. I could see through her lies now, but it didn't make her any less dangerous. She's always been good at twisting the truth, and I knew she'd do everything to win this fight, even if it meant destroying me completely. Her threats about claiming half the house, about ruining my reputation, were just her desperate attempts to regain control. But I was done playing her game. I knew I had the truth, and I was ready to fight for what was rightfully mine. Money, of course, was at the heart of this mess. That $250, $0 she stole from our inheritance. It wasn't just numbers to me anymore, it was our future. That money was supposed to buy us a house, support our life, give us stability. She took that away with no remorse just because she wanted to run away with her boss, David. I kept thinking about how reckless and selfish she'd been, how she'd risked everything for a quick fling. And now she was claiming she deserved half the house, even though she'd betrayed me from the start. I knew the court would see through her lies, but it was still nerve-wracking waiting for the hearing to begin. Her lawyer tried to paint her as a victim, claiming that I'd been abusive and controlling, trying to discredit my side. They argued that since we were married, she deserved her fair share, even though she'd already shown her true colors. I had to stay calm, focus on the facts, and present my case clearly. I had the proof, texts, emails, bank transfers, that she'd been planning her escape for months. Her attempt to spin this as a love story gone wrong was so transparent I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. The truth was, She was a manipulative, greedy woman who'd do anything to keep the house and the money. I had to make sure the judge saw that. As the day of the hearing approached, I felt a mixture of dread and determination. I knew would do everything she could to sway the court to make herself look like the wronged wife. But I also knew I had the truth on my side. I had kept meticulous records, collected evidence, and hired a top lawyer. I was ready to fight to the end. The courtroom was intimidating, but I refused to be cowed. I sat there listening to her lawyer spinning her sob story, trying to make her look innocent. But I could see through it all. Her bitchy smirk, the way she avoided eye contact, the way she tried to manipulate the judge. She was desperate. When it was finally my turn to speak, I laid out everything clearly and confidently. I told the court about her affair, her theft, her lies, and how she'd betrayed everything we built together. I presented the evidence, screenshots of her messages with David bank statements showing the withdrawals, the recordings I'd made of her calls. I explained how she'd planned her escape, how she'd stolen our inheritance, and how she was trying to claim half the house unjustly. I could see her trying to interrupt, trying to spin her lies, but I held my ground. I knew I was making a difference. It was like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders just by finally telling the truth. The judge listened carefully, and I could tell he saw through her act. After hours of testimony and evidence, the ruling came back in my favor. She was her claim to half the house, and the court ordered her to pay back the stolen money plus interest. The relief was overwhelming, but at the same time I felt hollow. The damage was done, and I knew this wasn't just about winning a legal battle. It was about reclaiming my life from someone I'd trusted and loved. She lost her claim, but she'd already taken so much from me. My trust, my innocence, my sense of security. In the aftermath, his bitchy, manipulative side didn't disappear overnight. She continued to lash out, trying to discredit me and spin her version of events. But I was no longer listening. I knew the truth, and I knew I'd won this round. The house was ours again, and I was finally starting to breathe a little easier. Still, the scars of her betrayal lingered. The pain of discovering she'd cheated on me on our wedding night, stolen from us, and then lied about it all was something I'd carry forever. But I also learned that I was stronger than I thought, strong enough to face the worst, stand up for myself, and come out the other side. This whole experience has changed me. I'm more cautious, more guarded, but also more aware of how people can hide their true selves behind a smile. I've realized that trust is fragile, and sometimes the people you love most can hurt you the worst. But I also learned that justice matters, that standing up for yourself, no matter how bitter the fight, is worth it. Because in the end, I know I did what was right. And I hope that anyone else out there going through something similar, trust your instincts, gather your evidence, and don't be afraid to fight for what's yours. Because betrayal isn't the end. It's just the beginning of a new fight for your life. Looking back now, I realize how much I've changed through this entire nightmare. I used to be someone who trusted easily, believed in the best of people, especially the ones I loved. But betrayal shattered that illusion. It's a brutal lesson about how some people will do anything, lie, cheat, steal, to get what they want, even if it means destroying the lives of those who trust them. I've learned that you have to be vigilant, that you can't take trust for granted, and that sometimes the people closest to you are the ones capable of the deepest betrayal. Getting through this has been one of the hardest things I've ever done. There were nights I couldn't sleep, days I felt like giving up, and moments when I questioned whether I'd ever feel normal again. But I kept pushing forward, knowing that I deserved better than someone who would lie and steal from me. The court victory was a relief, but it didn't erase the pain of what I'd gone through. Still, it gave me a sense of closure, proof that justice can be served even when the road is long and painful. One thing I've come to understand is that revenge isn't just about getting even or punishing someone. It's about reclaiming your life, your dignity, and your peace of mind. Thought she could ruin me, but I refused to let her. I fought back with everything I had: legal action, evidence, resilience, and I came out stronger on the other side. That's the real victory, realizing that I'm capable of surviving the worst and still moving forward. Now I'm rebuilding. I've started therapy to deal with the emotional scars, and I've taken steps to secure my financial future. I've learned to be more cautious about who I trust and more aware of red flags. I've also become more assertive, more determined to protect myself from people who might take advantage. I don't know what the future holds, but I do know that I'm finally in control again. I've taken back my life from someone who tried to destroy it. To anyone reading this who might be in a similar situation, trust your instincts. Gather your evidence. Don't be afraid to fight for what's rightfully yours, even if it feels overwhelming. Betrayal cuts deep, but it's not the end. It's just a painful chapter in your story. You're stronger than you think, and you deserve happiness, trust, and honesty. Never forget that. And never let anyone steal your peace or your future, no matter how manipulative or bitchy they might be. Because at the end of the day, your life is yours to rebuild, and you can come out of it better than ever.